Hi, I'm Lee Morrison of Urban Combatives. I want to introduce you to a revolutionary new method of training, pad training specifically for combatives, street-related self-protection called PAD-COM. Son of a bitch. Hey!
Stay where you are! I don't know you! Stay there!
In this program, we're going to cover the very basics of safe pad feed that replicates the 5 to 10 second tear up of a real altercation in the street. This new methodology will take your combatives training to an absolutely new level. So I want to maintain a power line. So the first shot I'm going, I'm going to attach, I'm going to raise my arm, hit again. You've now taken a knee for the purpose of understanding transition. I need to raise my elbow, hit one more time, maintaining a grip which will pull me forward. Hello, my name is Lee Morrison of Urban Combatives. I'd like to welcome you to this new production called PAD-COM, which basically relates to training street-related combative hard skills with focus pads. So we're looking at a way in which we can train very efficiently, very seamlessly with no holding back using just focus pads. We're going to use a variety of pads, including the standard type of pad that you would get. We're also looking at these kind of maybe face mitt type pads. At some point in time, we'll look at these kind of pads with tie structure. But right now we're going to work with these two pads here, which come from Combatives Training Gear, company in Germany that's producing a pad specifically for combatives. They work really, really well because they're quite wide, they're quite strong, quite big, and they're flat, which allows us to put them on so they're not contoured. We can put them on the normal conventional way, and we can put them on the reverse way, as if the hand's back on the back of the hand, so that we can constitute various other different targets. So we're going to be using these. But basically, PAD-COM is about working with a partner who uses pads in a seamless way effectively, so you can go from concussively hitting the pads to ballistically manipulating and dragging your partner into a position where you can dominate and hit the pads again. This will also implement putting your pad feeder into walls and into the floor. So there's quite a bit of manhandling going on, and you're going to be receiving impact which you'll learn to ride very safely. But the good thing about this kind of impactive or inoculation, if you like, is going to get you somewhat inoculated to getting bashed about a bit, which is also very, very useful if you end up having to use any of this stuff for real, because what this replicates is a 5 to 10 second tear up in the street, so the pavement arena. We're not talking about the sporting arena. We're just using pads in a way in which we can seamlessly flow from one strike, one target to another in a very concussive way. Like I said, manipulating the partner, but with relative safety. So previously, combative training with pad work was relatively static, very sterile. You'll hold the pad still and the person will develop tools, will develop impact, body mechanics, etc. There's no real fight dynamic to it. The only fight dynamic that we get from combatives training comes from kitted, padded assailant simulation and scenario type training, which is useful, but sometimes, particularly for those relatively new to it, the transition from hitting the pads to dynamic type of simulation is too big a jump. So we developed PAD-COM, or in particular this acknowledgement goes to Jamie Miller, who's the UK European representative for UC. PAD-COM is pretty much his brainchild. We got together training, and from having to put up with me ragging him around while we're working drills all the time, he learned very quickly how to feed in the safest possible way. So PAD-COM is Jamie Miller's brainchild, without a doubt. And between us, we have developed what we're going to give you here today in a fundamental sense. The pad transition, or the essence of PAD-COM, if you like, is, like I said, going from concussively hitting the pads to manhandling your partner into a position where you can dominate and end the fight situation within 5 to 10 seconds. But inside of the PAD-COM umbrella, there is a variety of ways in which we can change pads. And what that will implement is solo type pad training if you're training alone, partner pad training for what we call fight conditioning. So fight conditioning works our attributes. We may work pads for tool development to develop the structure of impact of a strike. We may work specifically for speed, for power, for body mechanics, in which case I'm focusing on what I'm doing, and my coach who's feeding me the pads is giving me visual cues and auditory advice. So PAD-COM training for fight conditioning is the way that most people train with pads. But the true essence of PAD-COM is what we call fight management. So fight management employs conceptual principle-based drills that really replicate how we fight the fight. And that's what this fundamental part one of this program is all about. So anybody who is familiar with UC will know that it's principle-based, it's conceptual driven, and it's totally backed up by mentality. So the mentality part of the equation is what makes it extremely different from how you train pads with combat sport. In fact, it's what makes combatives completely different to combat sport or any other type of martial method. Dealing with real violence in a real sense is a 90% psychological event. You have to get your head in the right place. The actual physical implement employed is 10% of the equation, very simple caveman and gross motor. But fight management drills relate to how we fight the fight. So as an example of that, we will use the concept of blitzkrieg. So blitzkrieg is an offensive, proactive campaign designed to totally fucking overwhelm the enemy before there is any possible chance of recovery or retaliation. That dynamic for use of violence is what's called asymmetrical. It's one-sided. I want to be first with the most, so I come out the best. That's what we're looking at. Of course, we will work these fight management drills from two perspectives. One will be offensive, where I'm acting first, which is the ideal, but not always possible. And the second will be counter-offensive, where now I am reacting in a reactive sense because you are beating on me and I need to reverse the predatory dynamic very quickly. So PAD-COM is divided into two areas: fight management, how we fight the fight, and fight conditioning, developing attributes and qualities that will make us better at the first. Okay? The ideal is that you have a good understanding of combatives training in the first place. So although PAD-COM is designed for UC training, it will dovetail into anything else that you do. So if you work in Krav Maga or any type of reality-based type of self-defense, if you like, then the principles of PAD-COM will work with the skill set that you employ. But make no mistake, PAD-COM is a mirror image of what UC is all about. And UC is 90% attitude, 10% skill. So what we are going to implement is a fundamental breakdown of how that works. You need to understand that PAD-COM is not designed for the total newbie that's just walking through the door. It's more of an intermediate-based type of subject. So I'm taking it as a given that you already have a good understanding of the combative toolbox. You know how to throw a palm, a slap, a hammer fist, an elbow, a knee. You are physically competent. What also makes PAD-COM very different from conventional pad training is the mentality point of view. So both the pad feeder, PF, and the Combatives Trainee, CT, need to be on the same hymn sheet. So they need to be on the same page on an emotional level. So if we're working fight management drills, I'm replicating getting through some fucker in 5 seconds, putting him down quickly or he's going to hurt me. in which case the mental state that I would be in at that moment would be fight state. I would be aggressive, I would be guttural, and I would be coming steamrolling forward. The person on the receiving end of that, because he's giving me energy that's going to entice me to fight, if you like, will also be aggressive in emotional state. He's not just going to stand there with a pad, he's going to walk towards me with purposeful intent. He's probably going to exhibit a pre-threat cue, and if I don't stick to the script and preempt first, he's probably going to attack. So there is a mentality platform. What also makes this very different from conventional pad training for combat sport, boxing or MMA, is the time frame. So the time frame for a boxing round or a Thai boxing round or an MMA boxing round could be anywhere between 2 and 3 minutes. So if you've got in a ring and work with a boxing coach on the pads, you're working for 2 or 3 minutes to a timer. The replication of the pavement arena, which is what we're replicating, is 5 to 10 seconds. If you haven't got it over in 5 to 10 seconds, you're fucking about. So the range, the round time, if you like, each repetition represents a fight. You need to get in the correct mentality for that. Certain elements when we work fight management drills will be implemented, and they are a given, they are stuck to. So when we're working fight management, if the subject walks towards me, I'm going to employ contact management and situational control. When the fight dynamic starts, I'm not going to stop striking or manipulating or ballistically dominating the fight until the man is down. When my pad feeder receives and recognizes impact that would have indeed knocked him down or knocked him out, he will replicate hitting the ground quickly. If my strike was not efficient enough, then he won't. He will give me a transition, which will tell me that I need to continue before he recovers and attacks me. So these things are a given. Once the subject is down, we implement what we call tactical disengagement. Understand that you would be tunnel visioned inside of a fight dynamic. Understand that within any situation that you find yourself in that replicates the street, there's a good chance that there's a weapon involved and there's multiple assailants. So the objective would be to put the threat down quickly, get off the X and get gone. So these things, when we do fight management type drills, whether they're proactive, offensive, or counter-offensive, will have these staples in place. If we are working fight conditioning, this is a different thing. If we work in fight conditioning, then I will not contact manage, the drill would not finish with the man down, and I will not tactically disengage, because here he is giving me verbal coaching of how to use my body mechanics, more impact, better targeting, etc. And my focusing is only on the attribute that I'll be working. But the true essence of PAD-COM is the fight dynamic. So learning seamlessly to be able to transition from concussively hitting pads to ballistically manipulating my partner. So my partner is going to get desensitized or inoculated quite quickly to getting smashed into things, to getting ragged around, and to receiving impact, all of which is very useful if you ever find yourself in a real fight dynamic. So what we're going to present to you will be the essence, the fight management. That's what we're looking at. First, we're looking at it in disc one from a proactive perspective. We're going to cover two principles. One is the blitzkrieg, and the other is conceptual-based, our UC game plan. So, and then following on disc, we are going to implement counter-offense. So I've not been fortunate enough to be proactive, I'm under assault, and I need to reverse the predatory or fight dynamic. When we do that, like I said, we're going to be implementing pads of various configurations. But what is also recommended is that the pad feeder will wear a gum shield. He will wear a standard groin guard as a very minimum, and where necessary, particularly if it becomes more dynamic and we're using the environment, confined space, working in a vehicle, etc., we will use this kind of full face headgear. And the reason the full face headgear and groin guard will be worn is because it will act as a second or a third pad. I do not want to have to wait for, if I rag my pad man into the wall, for him to put the target up. He should automatically know to put the target up. But if he doesn't and he's got a helmet, then I don't have to wait and I can still hit the head. And like I said, if he doesn't get the pads down, I can hit the groin. The only thing that you need to recognize is kit is limited in terms of your impact delivery. So there's a safety issue. You can hit the pads concussively hard, you can manipulate your partner relatively hard, but you have to pull your contact when you hit the helmet and when you hit the groin. But the ideal will be when you both get on the same page. So when you are on the same page, you have a rapport between you and the feeder, which, like I said, is an intermediate thing and takes flight time, but will happen quickly. You will be able to seamlessly go from one to the other. We're going to give you a scripted number of drills that are not set in stone. They're just logical in terms of transitions. I can tell you from experience, if you hit somebody hard in the groin, they usually pike forward. If you hit them frontal in the head will snap back. And if you hit them lateral, they'll move lateral. So you're going to get logical transitions that we've seen to happen in the street. And once understood, you can start to learn how to ad-lib. What this will give you is the ability to, like I said, seamlessly flow from one thing to the other. And it feels like you're in a simulation. It can feel like you're in an actual fight dynamic, but it's a lot safer because you're hitting the pads rather than repeatedly hitting your padded partner. Once you are on the same page, this really does bridge the gap between static sterile pad work and simulation full-on scenario training, which, like I said before, can quite often, the newbie to combatives can find the jump too much of a big transition. So PAD-COM acts as a bridge between sterile fundamental pad training and full-on scenario training. And it gives you a good inoculation on the way up so that when you get there, you're more efficient. So this is PAD-COM, and I honestly believe that this is a revolutionary new way in which to take your combative efficiency to another level. So understand 3 perspectives we're going to work from. The first, for the combative trainee, he's going to learn how to efficiently and effectively seamlessly flow his hard skills. From the pad feeder's perspective, you are going to learn how to coach your trainee and bring him to a higher level of efficiency. And then once both sides understand how to do both things, you've got a coaching perspective, where now you can feed the pads and you can hit the pads fucking well. And that's when it's going to take you to a new level. So this is PAD-COM. Hope you enjoy it. One thing I want to say in this introduction is that relates to the difference specifically between combat sport and sport-based martial art pad feeding to pad feeding for combatives. So the first primary difference is the arena. When we get in a ring and train with a boxing coach on the pads, we're training for the boxing ring. When we train in a matted dojo, we're training for the MMA type of environment. When we train PAD-COM or combative training for the street, we're replicating the street. We're replicating the pavement arena, which does not look like this. It's not a matted floor, forgiving walls, and a compliant, nice environment. The reality of the street is the comfort factor is fucking 0 and the stress factor is through the roof because there's a massive emotional response. So where this is likely to happen is confined space, dark and dim light, slippery floor, confinement, a rough, nasty, unforgiving environment where there's broken glass, dog shit and uneven curb surfaces if you hit the ground. So understand that the environment or the arena, very different. The second is the time frame. Time frame for real violence is fucking over in 5 seconds. In 5 seconds, it's begun and finished. So if you look at the concept of time in an amateur boxing round, 2 minutes. Professional bout, 3 minutes. MMA, anything up to 5 or 15 minutes. We're not replicating that then. We are replicating an all-out struggle in a dynamic sense. So you're implementing anaerobic ATP, non-oxidative energy system, which will be spent in 10 seconds. So the job, you need to get the fucking job done quick. So the time frame is very different because time is limited, right? The other thing probably that comes into it is range and distance. In MMA, you've got 3 feet. You've got kicking range before you move to punching range, before you move to grappling range. In the street, there's 2 ranges. There's conversation range, where you shake hands, where all human interaction takes place. And then there's in your fucking face. So you need to make all your combative hard skills work within the confines of a phone box. It's very close. The main difference is the starting platform. So the starting platform for an MMA bout or a Thai boxing bout or a boxing bout is consensual combat. We both get into the training arena, we touch gloves, we move around and we do our thing because we both agree to be there. Whereas the starting platform for real violence is very different. It's an emotional platform, and it's fucking non-consensual. So chances are you're probably thinking about what you're going to be having for dinner on a mental preparation scale to fight of 0 or 1, and somebody who's already pre-selected you as a target is now walking towards you with purposeful intent is probably on a mental platform of preparation to fight of 9. So once you're faced with this dynamic and you suddenly realize that there's going to be violence, hopefully awareness was in place, there's a need to psychologically fucking catch up very quickly. And this will induce a massive adrenal response. Primarily it's non-consensual. This cunt wants to give you a problem and you just want to go home. So many people's reaction to being faced with sudden violence out of no choice of their own is usually fearful. Adrenaline hits their body, they misinterpret it for fear, and quite often they will freeze up or capitulate. Well, I put it to you that if somebody offers you non-consensual violence, you should fucking resent that. That should spark indignation in your brain. Rather than think, oh my God, I'm in trouble, you should think, how fucking dare you walk into my life and give me a problem? And that should incite indignation, which is going to fuel your controlled rage during the fight. And that's the main component that's so different to combat sport. Aggression, intent to destroy the enemy before he fucking destroys you, in a literal sense maybe. So understanding that combatives is at the extreme end of the self-protection scale. It's designed for real threat to life. A level 10 threat, where potentially there's a disparity in threat. This guy's potentially armed, you might have 2 or 3 people, I'm unarmed and I'm on my own. There's a good chance that any situation that you find yourself in now, there will be weapons and there will be multiples. And in fact, it's getting worse and worse. What's likely now is you're likely to face multiple armed assailants. Potential fucking death in any situation. So you need to get your head on it. So like I said before, for all of these type of drills, particularly fight management, the person holding the pads in a predatory mode needs to access a predatory mental state. And the person that is going to be able to deal with that and reverse the dynamic needs to do the same and more. So these are the components that are really make PAD-COM so different to combat sport pad training. The arena, the time frame, the starting platform, and the emotional element. This is Jamie Miller. He's a UK European UC representative, been with me for 12 years. Been on many different countries, training me and teaching in seminars, teaches in seminars in his own right, goes abroad. Like I said before, PAD-COM is his brainchild, and he came up with it out of a matter of necessity because we were formulating drills and making videos, and I can be an impatient fucker at sometimes, and I expect high standard from somebody that's been with me for 12 years, and he is a high standard. So I wanted him to be able to feed me very quickly so that I don't have to pause. I don't have to wait. I can just go full on, full speed. And that made it very necessary for him to find ways or cultivate ways in which not to get hit. And that was really the birthstone for PAD-COM, if you like, as he'll explain to you later. The basic essence of PAD-COM should only be approached after a good warm-up. So it's very important, we'll go through the safety fundamentals, that you warm up. The basics of warming up are, you need to get blood and oxygen to the brain. You need to raise the heart rate first. Then you need to mobilize your joints so that they feel oiled and warmed up. So you may do some floor work to pump some blood volume to the muscles, so push-ups, squats, that kind of thing. And then you would do some mobility type exercises. The exercises that you want to do primarily are to warm up the joints. So you need to warm up the shoulders, the elbows, the wrists, and the fingers and the hands. So various mobility movements we will look at. It's very important also when you start to feed pads that you do it from a very stable based position. The idea to stick to is you want to be receiving impact from a multi-joint perspective rather than a single isolation joint. So as an example, the way in which we used to feed pads in a lateral sense used to be here for a frontal target with the arm out. And what we would find is that you would receive impact, and over a short period of time you would cultivate rotator cuff injuries. Everybody within the combatives fraternity has shoulder problems. So now we made a big difference in keeping the pad in front. So the back of the hand is in line with the shoulder, and now the impact is received via the wrist, the elbow and the shoulder. And as we take the impact, a transition is given to bleed off impact. Much safer way. The additional starting point will be that you will do a variety of mobility exercises for your wrists, elbows, shoulders. You will put blood to the muscles, raise the heart rate, oxygen and blood to the brain. Now you are in the best emotional, physiological state to learn and receive information. This would be our warm-up. Highly recommended. Understand that when you undertake any type of physical activity, it's your responsibility to go to your GP and make sure that you're fit and ready to take part, okay? With that said, I'm going to give you a brief drill example, slowed down so you can see the essence of going from a pad to partner manipulation, and in this case into the environment. This is the essence of PAD-COM.